Hey everyone, welcome to Beyond Top Secret, a show brought to you by the UAP Reporting Center on X. So make sure you stop by Twitter after this and give us a follow. So we got a good episode for you tonight, but before we jump into tonight's show, please hammer the like button, hit subscribe so we can get this seen by more people. Apparently you have to please the YouTube gods for anybody to see your video, so give me a break with that, will you guys? So tonight we're diving into one of the most controversial and unsettling topics in the entire field of UFO research. Something even hardcore disclosure researchers tiptoe around or never mention at all. Hybridization. Alien human hybrids. Yep. And the claim from abductees, researchers, and even some whistleblowers that hybrids may already be walking among us. So think about it. If that's true, it changes everything we thought we knew about who we are and what's been happening on this planet for at least decades. So tonight, I'm breaking down this topic piece by piece, where the hybrid idea came from, what the most credible researchers that have looked into it have found, and what abductees consistently report across decades, and why some insiders believe hybrids are already here living among us. So guys, this is going to be a deep one. Buckle in because we're getting right into it. So where did the hybrid idea come from at all? To figure that out, we have to start at the beginning. So basically, when people hear alien human hybrids, their minds instantly jump to sci-fi, like some 80s, 50, not even 80s, some 1950s crazy movie with alien human hybrids running around. But that's not the case. The idea didn't start with science fiction. It started with patterns, hundreds of them coming from people who didn't know each other and long before the internet even existed. And to me, that holds a lot of weight. So let's go back to the 1940s and 50s. After Roswell, and after the early saucer sightings started, you started hearing whispers in intelligence circles about biological specimens being recovered. You hear that multiple times from Kingman, Arizona to Roswell and more. You started hearing things about bodies and specimens, and that kind of what takes us into this. They weren't just talking about craft. They're talking about bodies that came with the craft. So not too far after that, let's say in the 1960s, basically the contactee movement started. Whether it be George Adamski, Angelucci, Menger, they were all describing human-like extraterrestrials, not little gray beings, but literal human lookalikes. So when people heard about it, they got laughed out of the room, they got dismissed. Who would ever talk about something so crazy? And that's part of it. Why would serious people like them talk about something they knew people were going to mock them for and ridicule them for, unless it was the truth? So, what if ETs and humans were biologically compatible in some way? Then the human, the abduction phenomena, let's say, so after the 60s, the abduction phenomena really took off in the 1970s and 80s. And basically, the talk about hybrids becomes unavoidable. Abductees from all over the world started describing the same things. And again, this is long before the internet. This is long before people had access to each other to copy each other's notes. So again, I know I just said that, but that holds weight with me. Patterns hold weight with me. So abductees from all over the world, they start talking about reproductive procedures, missing pregnancies, abductees being shown hybrid infants, and them actually being told, this is your child. Just think about that for a moment. You've been abducted, you're panicking, some crazy alien thing walks up to you with a little infant and says, This is your baby. If you were a woman, just put yourself in their shoes for just a moment to think of the terror of that moment. And that wasn't all they were told. They're also told hybrids will live among you someday. That's an actual quote that an abductee was told. So again, this is no internet, no TikTok, no Reddit, no Twitter, just raw, unconnected testimony, and that kind of consistency matters. Now, let's talk about some serious researchers who really backed this case and got it known by a whole lot of people. Let's talk about Bud Hopkins and Dr. David Jacobs. They are two names that define the hybrid conversation. Bud Hopkins interviewed hundreds of abductees, and he noticed immediately that reproductive themes were everywhere. People described surgical-like procedures, eggs harvested, sperm taken, think of Whitley Strieber, fetuses removed, and then being shown hybrid babies not far after that. So Dr. David Jacobs, he took it even further than that. So if you've never heard of Dr. Jacobs, I highly recommend looking him up and specifically listening to when he was on Art Bell's show on Coast to Coast, because it's some serious shit. So who was Dr. Jacobs? He taught at Temple University. He was a historian and he was a serious academic. And he spent decades collecting abduction testimony under hypnosis, thousands of hours. And Dr. Jacobs concluded two things. The abduction phenomena is real. Its primary purpose is hybridization. And he didn't mean that metaphorically. He meant it literally. Non-human beings are engineering hybrid offspring. And he even broke it into different stages. He talked about early hybrids that were done at the very beginning that looked kind of more grays than they did human. There was mid-stage hybrids where they started making some progress, and then late-stage hybrids, which were nearly indistinguishable from us. And here's the kicker. Jacobs believed the integration process had already begun. Like I said, he went on Art Bell multiple times saying hybrids were learning to drive. They were learning to dress properly so they didn't stick out. They were learning how to get jobs and function like normal people. They were attempting to get into relationships. They were learning how to be human. They were learning how to live everyday life. Abductees told them hybrids would approach them in grocery stores or, let's say, a parking lot, and they'd try to speak telepathically. I remember listening to those shows, and I remember Art saying these were the scariest shows he had ever done. And Art himself took it very seriously. So if you haven't seen those shows or heard those shows, they're on Spotify or YouTube. You can find them. If you do want to hear them and you can't find them, leave it in my comments and I'll DM you a link. Excuse me. I need my Coca-Cola. So this wasn't fringe internet stuff. These were patterns that emerged from the 40s, through the 80s and 90s and later. So what did abductees themselves say? What are these stories that are being told to Dr. Jacobs and Bud Hopkins and others? So abductees report some absolutely wild but consistent details. They talk about the hybrids' facial expressions, teaching them the facial expressions. They talked about how hybrids, they don't understand boundaries. They mimic emotions, but they don't come off naturally. They stare awkwardly or too intensely, just staring at someone. And they speak in like a flat tone that they do a lot of things that just don't seem right. They don't seem normal. They sometimes appear like awkward in basic social interactions. And the more I describe here, the more I think I'm talking about myself. I might be a hybrid because I'm the most socially awkward person that there is, as I'm sure you could tell by watching this video. So some abductees, they even describe teaching hybrids how to learn to eat, to learn to dress, to behave, even how to use appliances so they don't burn a house down. Anything that a hybrid would need to know to try to be human, abductees were subjected to teach them. They were their human acting teachers, so to speak. So whether you believe these accounts literally or symbolically, the patterns are there. It's at least worth talking about and trying to get to the bottom of. Because there's thousands of people that describe nearly the same thing. So let's fast forward a little bit. Let's fast forward to today. Let's fast forward to the current disclosure era. So David Grush in his testimony, he didn't explicitly say hybrids, but he did say that the U.S. recovered non-human biologics, not bodies, biologics. It's a very interesting word choice.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
He also said some recovered materials showed signs of engineering, meaning they're not purely extraterrestrial or purely biological. Think about that for a minute. It's really, really rather interesting. Another person is Carl Nell. If you're not familiar with Carl Nell, he's a very serious military person and a very serious executive in the aerospace industry. And also another whistleblower. He believes the phenomena involves entities far beyond human capability. Another one is Jonathan Gray from the National Air and Space Intelligence Center. And what did he say? Jonathan Gray said, "We are not alone." And he empathized that non-human intelligence phenomena, not extraterrestrial spacecraft. That phrasing leaves room that they're not fully alien and they're not fully human. So if you look at Grush, you look at Nell, you look at Gray, and you really look at what they said, it does lend a little bit of credence to Dr. Jacobs and Bud Hopkins. Even the you're still alive, Richard, I apologize. Even Richard Doty. Controversial? Absolutely. But he also repeatedly claimed there were hybridization programs known to some of the branches of the intelligence services. And that, think of what you will about Richard Doty, but him saying that does, again, lend more credence to the issue. When you put all of this together, you start seeing a bigger picture. Not proven by any stretch, but still highly suggestive. So, let's talk about the idea that hybrids are already walking among us. You know, this is the part that people find either the craziest or the creepiest, like Art Bell did. So Dr. Jacobs believed late-stage hybrids can walk right past you and you wouldn't know. Perfectly human-looking, but just a little bit off. Maybe you can't place it, but they just strike you as a little strange. Abductees describe hybrids appearing at bus stops, inside stores, in hospitals, at schools, in workplaces, and even outside their homes. Some abductees report hybrids dressing strangely or just kind of out of fashion, maybe a few decades behind. They describe hybrids watching them silently, studying them. And the most extreme claim is that hybrids are being placed strategically. They're placed strategically in parts of society for more long-term integration. So, again, I'm not saying this is a fact. So don't come at me on Twitter or in the comments saying I believe all this and putting a whole bunch of laugh emojis. I'm just saying this is what researchers and experiencers have both reported. And there is a pattern that you can't ignore. These stories, they don't come from one person or two people. They come from hundreds or thousands of people, separated by decades and separated by continents. They come from everywhere, and they come from everywhere before the internet. So I do believe that holds a lot of weight. So let's say, could hybrids even biologically be possible? So let's talk science for just a minute, because this is where skeptics jump in hard. Could a non-human intelligence even hybridize with humans naturally? Probably not. But artificially? Through genetic engineering? Absolutely. And we're already doing it today. Think about it. We splice DNA across species. That's been done plenty of times. We genetically engineer human traits. We rebuild or build new organs just from DNA. And I all but guarantee in secret we are cloning. If we can do that in 2025, what could a civilization do that's hundreds or thousands or millions of years ahead of us? Rest assured, I think they would be able to have a hybrid program. They would know what's needed to do something like that. So hybridization, it may not be science fiction at all.
Okay, a number of questions pop to mind. For example, if you were staring at a hybrid, would you know it?
No, you would not know it. And if you knew it, that person wouldn't be there.
Well, then that would suggest a more subtle merging of the species, if you want to put it that way, because they certainly look more human than they do anything else, right?
I call them hybrids. They are bred to look human, and not just human, but average human that will not stand out, that blends in, period. If they're too tall, not a chance of coming down here. If they got too big a nose, not going to happen. If their eyes are too big, nope. They have to look absolutely average.
Normal.
Now, here's the thing. All gray aliens and all hybrids and all hybrids and all other beings on board the object have one interesting trait. They can control people's minds neurologically and make them do or think or see anything that they want them to do or see or think or see. And we can't do that to them. That is an astoundingly huge difference.
It is.
It's a difference between species. It makes us a second-class species and them a first-class species. It's not like they're just kissing cousins who live off and somewhere else and they're coming to visit us and all the rest of that stuff. That's not what this is about. You got to remember, this is a global phenomenon. This goes around the world. It does not matter where a person is born or what their life was like or what their educational level is or what their intelligence level is or their geographic area or anything. They all say the same things in terms of the abduction phenomenon.
All right. These are remarkable allegations you're making. Now, I've got a zillion questions. Hybrids. Okay, we'll call them that. Hybrids. Humans with the ability to control others' minds, are they aware of that ability?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, because they rely on abductees to teach them how to live in society. They rely on them on board the object when they're young, and when they get ready to move into apartments, they rely on them to teach them how to furnish the apartment, to teach them how to go shopping, to teach them how to drive, to teach them about relationships, to teach them everything. And so, and abductees do that, and then they forget immediately, just like an abduction, what has happened, and they're completely controlled. They can't say, "I'll be back in a minute." Just hang on there for a second, and then come out of a closet carrying a 9mm Glock. They can't do that. So,
all right, that's a gigantic difference between human beings and hybrids, as you call them. Is there any other difference that you're aware of?
No. they are human, except their neurological abilities are impossible to imagine, and they are completely controlling of humans.
Well, that would make them essentially a master race.
You said it. I didn't.
I did. I'm not afraid to say it. If you have a group of people able to control the minds and the thoughts and even the visions of others, that is a super race.
Is there some kind of ultra-terrestrial aspect of all this? And I think there could be. If you've been following my work, I've been on Twitter posting the high strangeness phenomena of all this, or the interdimensional ultra-terrestrial aspect of the UAP phenomena. Posted 2 parts so far. I think they're worth reading. And I think that also lends credence that a program like this is possible. So if you can't, go on Twitter, UAP Reporting Center, and you'll find it. There's been 2 parts so far, with more to come. So what would hybrids mean for disclosure? Where do hybrids fit into the whole aspect of UAPs? And this is a very serious part of the issue for me. And it's the part that nobody wants to talk about. Because if hybridization is real, then disclosure becomes nearly impossible. Because you're not just revealing aliens. You're not just revealing strange craft from the future. You're revealing biological manipulation. And that is serious shit. Biological manipulation, interbreeding, infiltration of society. The idea that humans may not be the only people on Earth, and that some of them non-humans may look completely human. You could drop a UFO in the White House lawn and it wouldn't break society. But telling the public some of the people you see every day, some of the people you know, aren't entirely human, that's where governments start to panic, and I'd all but guarantee it would upend religion, identity, politics, bioethics, and every other acronym you could possibly think of. And maybe, just maybe, that's why the hybrid topic is so taboo. Because even in UFO land, you rarely see it talked about. And it's one of the most serious aspects of this topic, even in UFO circles. So, final thoughts, guys. Where does all this leave us? Thousands of abductee testimonies, all describing the same thing. 2 of the most respected abduction researchers in the world, coming to the conclusion that hybrids are real. Whistleblowers hinted at engineered biologics. David Grush said that same thing. Elites within intelligence claiming hybrid programs exist, and they've existed for decades. And an entire generation, more than a generation, of experiencers saying hybrids already live among us. Are they right? Are hybrids real? Are they here? I can't answer that for you. But I can say this. There's a lot of smoke here. So pretending that there's no fire, it just doesn't hold water. So let me know in the comments. Do you think hybridization is happening? Do you think it's possible? Do you think alien-human hybrids walk among us? Or is it all psychological? Is it just spiritual? Or is it just straight up bullshit? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Hit the thumbs up. Hit subscribe. Stay safe. Stay curious. And guys, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for coming by.